Today I'm going to make a desktop sign that says School Reports. I'm going to start with the editable 3D text and click that once. I'm going to start with 40 millimeters tall and extrusion of 3 millimeters. I'm going to type in School Reports. And I'm going to change the font to Yearbook Solid. And then just click somewhere on it to place it. Then close. I don't like that the letters are all the same height. So I'm going to put another set of school reports that are smaller so I can mix them together. So again, draw editable 3D text. And this time I'll go with 30 millimeters and still 3 thick. And Yearbook Solid. So that's the only part I need. Okay, so place that on the page and then close. So I want to see what that would look like. Okay, I think I like that. So next, explode the school reports. And unselect the S and the R by triple clicking on them while holding down the Shift key. Now that leaves everything else selected there. I'm going to delete those. Now I'm going to explode the other portion and then regroup them as just the two parts. Again, with the S and R, I'm going to group those. So I select them and then right click and then make group. Select it just by pulling a box all the way around it and then making a group. And I'm going to take both of these and move them down to the red line. I'm zooming in by using the scroll wheel. I'm putting it on the origin line so that they're both on the red axis. Okay, next, I'm going to grab this group and move it over. And using the origin point to make sure that it's on that line, then move it over and get the spacing where I want it. That looks a little far. And you could measure it to get it exact, of course. Okay. Next, I'm going to move the R over. Okay, I like that spacing. Now the E ports. Move it down into place. I'm going to use the pieces that are already there to line it up. And then get the spacing. Okay. I definitely like that better than having them all the same height. Next, I'm going to explode everything. And while it's still selected, I'm going to tip it so that I'm even with the top edge. Okay, now I want to select just the top layer. So I'm going to just come in a little bit. It's important to have the top faces but not the other edges. So let's check to make sure that Nothing else is blue but the top faces. Okay. Using the scroll wheel, scroll back out. And then the rotate tool from the toolbar. Then I'm going to hover it on the bottom end point of this S. Then use the right arrow to make it turn red to make sure that I'm going to rotate on the red axis. And click once at that point, and then out at the far end or anywhere past that, as long as on the green axis. So click and then rotate up. And I'm going to go to 70 degrees. So I'm just going to type in 70 and enter. Okay, make sure that that all worked. Yeah, that looks good. Next, going to regroup the whole thing and move it up out of the way slightly. Now with the rectangle tool, I'm going to make a rectangle underneath it. And it doesn't matter if it's bigger than the text, it just needs to be at least as big. Once I have the rectangle, I'm going to use the push-pull tool, click on the top face. I'm going to type in 3 and enter. So I'm going to have a 3mm thick base. Now I'm going to triple click on the base, and then right click and make group. So now I have 2 groups. Now, I'm going to set the text group down on top of the base. So just move it and pull it on down. Okay, it's on that edge. Now I need to pull it forward. I want it to be even with the front face and one of the other sides. Next, we're going to select everything, and then using the outer shell tool, make it into one piece. Now I'm going to explode it again and get rid of the extra pieces by using the push-pull tool and pushing in against the back and the side. I'm also going to get rid of these front points. And this back one. I think it might be good to get rid of that corner too a little bit. So measure, say how far that was. So it was about a 3.3mm piece. So I'm going to go in this back corner, measure 3.3, enter, and the other direction, and then draw a line across it, diagonal across that piece. That way I can push that piece down too. Okay, and then the eraser can erase these guidelines. Next, using the tape measure tool, I'm going to just see how big this thing is. A little less than 41mm tall. And a little less than 250mm long. Now I might want to scale it up bigger, so I'm going to split it into 2 pieces so it can be printed as 2 separate parts. To do that, I'm going to put a dovetail joint between the 2 parts. So with the tape measure, I'm going to add a guideline. So I'm going to go at 111 millimeters. From that line, I'm going to come back 5 millimeters to make the dovetail area. So I'm just adding another guideline 5 millimeters away from that one. Then next, going in 7 millimeters from there. And then how much space? Yeah, I've got to go 17 millimeters there, so we've got pretty big space. Now, using the protractor tool, I'm going to start at this intersection, come up along the line, and then rotate in 30 degrees and enter. And do the same thing on the other side. 30 degrees and enter. So then, using the line tool from the toolbar, I'm going to follow these guidelines to make the shape of the dovetail. Now those guidelines can be erased. Now, to make sure that the two halves can come apart and go together, I'm going to put a little bit of a gap between the lines. So again, using the tape measure tool, I'm going to put some guidelines. I'm going to give 0.2 of a millimeter gap. The amount of gap would depend on how accurate your printer is and how tight you want it to be. Now, using the line tool again, I'll just trace along these guidelines. Oh, I got that one wrong. Oh. Tape measure coming out this direction. And just follow along all the guidelines. Now those guidelines can be erased. And then with the push-pull tool, that little 0.2 of a millimeter piece can be pushed down. Okay, and for some reason it left a bottom, so we'll erase that piece. Go underneath, get the other side. Okay, now I have two separate pieces. And I'm going to group each part. So triple click on one side, right click, make group. Triple click on the other side, right click, make group. And then last, I'm going to use the cleanup extension, get rid of any extra lines, and the solid inspector to make sure it's okay. And nested instances just means that there's groups. That'll still print just fine. Now they can be printed as separate pieces and dropped into those dovetail areas. And finally, make sure it's save and export STL so it's ready to print.